Hi friends, welcome to my weekly live stream about the Uno platform. My name is Jerome and I'm spending about an hour every week taking a look at Uno platform, new features, answering questions to people that are on the stream live with me today, or looking at news that have been happening during the past week, like for instance, uh, a blog post that was posted by one of our frequent contributor with the state of WebAssembly in 2023 and 2024, and with lots of interesting things. So if you have any questions during the stream, please let me know. Today we're going to be taking a look at one of the features that we talked about last week, which was the ability to be able to test XAML features directly into the Uno test playground, and because we were able to validate that. So let's dive into that one today. But before we start, that particular state of WebAssembly is particularly interesting to me because, we've been talking about this for almost 5 years now, and it's progressing in very interesting ways. Mainly because on the web it's moving, but also because on outside of the web it's moving with features like WASI and others. We can see, for instance, that tail calls have been added, and this is a particularly specific type of optimization. If you're doing any kind of functional programming, this is going to be of interest to you because it makes everything go a lot faster when you're doing recursive calls. GC is quite interesting. That one is and if you read the article, you'll see that the .NET team has been investigating how to add support for it. Unfortunately, the spec that has been designed by the WebAssembly committee is a little bit too far off with regards to what .NET requires to do garbage collection. So I think it will probably be waiting for another iteration of the specs to be used. Fix SIMD, that one has been included as part of .NET 8. If you've been following what we've been releasing, this is part of the Uno WASM Bootstrap tool, where you can add that very easily. It's actually enabled by default, but you can configure it very easily and make your algorithm go quite faster. The .NET runtime itself uses quite a bit of those, particularly in some very highly used pieces of code, like items counting and enumerables and things like that. So that's particularly interesting. Multiple memories is serving a very narrow case of isolation. They were talking a while back about something that's called, if I remember correctly, the ability to have modules that link each other, but for which a dependent module would not have access to the full memory of the module that calls it. So for instance, if you depend on some modules that has a very specific set of features, then if you want it to act on something that you provide, you can provide it a very small piece of memory for which it's going to work on, and then when it's done, then you read that memory back, but you don't give access to the full breadth of your current memory. So this is more of a security feature, but that's pretty interesting. So the .NET improvements around WebAssembly, there were quite a few. AOT's faster. There's also the JITterpreter that's been added. That was nice. Then we go into other pieces like Hyperlight, which is more on the server side, or maybe not browser side, if you will. That's quite interesting. WASI has been progressing as well. The .NET team has also been adding some features around this. And kind of a separate runtime that targets WASI so that it can run, and you can package a .NET runtime just specifically instead of a single WASM file. So that's pretty nice. It still has some limitations around the fact that I don't think there's AOT there at that point. Maybe it will be if there's the addition of the .NET Native. We'll see. So all of that, and I encourage you to read more about this. There's lots of features coming up, and Gerard has been kind enough to provide us with this nice article. So I see Limnai is here, as well as McNitz. Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining. So today we're going to be taking a look at trying to validate the results of that particular PR. So what we're going to do is just take the code from that PR, and we're going to be iterating into adding a way to validate pieces of code directly into the PR. So just to be clear on what this does. Last week when we tried to troubleshoot that particular PR, we noticed that the test around that method, around that new feature was, there was a test, but the test is passing. But there's also sometimes it's nice to be able to validate the behavior of that PR using the sample test that the sample app that is generated as part of the PR. So when you're creating a PR from Uno, the output of that PR is going to be two things, or at least two things. So there's the standard content of the PR that provides you with the artifacts and NuGet packages and things like that. But since past 2 months, we added something that are two things that are publishing the documentation as a staging. So you're going to be getting the documentation only for that PR, and you're going to be also getting a sample app that will be containing the code that is modified only for that PR. So that's particularly interesting because it allows for validating pretty much something for people that are testing and validating the PR, making sure that you're not doing anything wrong. So that you don't have to pull in everything. So just a staging app. So what was interesting is that the PR was adding a test, and when we were looking at that test, when focused element transformed, if we run the test here, we know that it's working properly. Well, I mean, it's validating properly, but the problem is that it goes so fast that we can't see what it's doing. So, and there's nothing that allows us to validate that the behavior visually works properly and not just by what the APIs are providing. So one of the interesting thing would be to be able to do something like the playground. So if you go to the playground the platform, the Uno, you're going to get the ability to have a section on the side that will provide you with a way to validate that the XAML that you've typed here is behaving properly and get the result on that side. Yeah, Linai, this is very interesting for testing. I mean, you're able to get the results of your PR as a live published version of your PR, and that's always useful because it's what the contributors and the maintainers of the blocks of code that you're modifying are going to be looking at. So so what we want to do basically is create a new section here that will be called we could be putting it here like in XAML making, or maybe create a playground entry. I don't know, that we could call it a playground entry, and that would behave like the unit test runner. For instance, when we look at unit tests, unit test runner is an actual entry that you can get to when you navigate on the side. So we can create a new one that's going to be called the playground, and in that playground, I think we're going to be able to we probably could bring the whole thing down. Actually, we could bring the XAML and the C#. Maybe that would be of interest. Yeah, I think we're going to do that. We're going to bring the whole thing. So a while back, I was figuring out, during the preparation of that stream to see what would I get into, and there are two things. Either we pull in the playground itself, so the playground is just parts of it. It doesn't have everything. It just have portions of the XAML, and maybe you recall a while back I was creating a version of the playground that had two pieces there. One that was having actually a third tab here that was showing the XAML code and data, and maybe that's something that we could add there. We could probably pull in the work that was done for that Uno playground temporary PR and just bring it in, and bring it in, not copy it, just bring it in a separate PR so that we can validate more things in there. So let's try this. Let's try this. So let's see which version I do have here. I have a Visual Studio Preview 3. Okay, so it's taking a while back, but that's fine. So we're gonna go directly into the Uno solution, and we're gonna bring in a large portion of what was in the playground, so that we can do the same thing. Okay. So I don't need that global JSON, and so let me make myself a little bit smaller here so that we can see everything. So we got the latest master. So I'm probably repeating this every time, but if you're doing some Uno development, the best thing to do is to change the Uno target framework override. That's coming from the Uno solution folder here, in the SRC folder, so that you only build for one target. And we're going to be building for one target. That one will be WebAssembly. So we're going to be using Net7 for that target. It's not super important if it goes to .NET 8. And we're going to be opening the WebAssembly only target. Last week, my microphone was a bit low. So I hope you can hear me well this time. So I tweaked a little bit the configuration so that it sounds better. Okay, so there was a problem with some of the project was probably not that useful, so we can just let it be. So what we need to do is have a new portion here that will just be a just a plain playground, if you will, that picks up for what's available from the other targets, and particularly what was in the original Uno playground. Okay, so we have let's call it the playground, and then we're going to pull in a lot of stuff. So I don't think I have the playground clone from that for that machine, but we're going to pick that up. I think it's called Uno Playground. There it is. And we should be getting some of the older PRs that are on the remote. I think it was called C#, if I remember correctly. C# support, there you go. Okay. So for that one, we should be able to pull most of what we had at the time. So we had the .NET SDK that was coming from not sure what exactly. We had a lot of the portions that were directly into. So we had a .NET SDK that is included directly here. We have a file list that was the list of files that were in that portion. We have the playground itself that is just a big background file. And which would do a lot of things. I'm actually wondering if we should be, making it as a component maybe. So let's do just a simple XAML one just for starters, and then we're going to be iterating to add support for a bigger one. And we're just going to be putting just a simple reader here, no C# for now, and then we'll pull in the rest, because I don't think it will fit in the 45 minutes that are left here. So we can add a new control, UWP. So it will be let's make it a user control. We're going to call it the let's call it the playground for now. Let's call it playground, just playground.xaml. That will be just enough. And when we want samples to appear directly into the running app, we can use a specific attribute, and you'll see that because this particular project has a lot of files, Visual Studio is having some trouble adding files in it. Probably should have been copying the files below. Let's see if it's able to pick it up. Yes, it is. Okay. So when we want to have samples that are available, we just need to take one sample and then use the sample info control and put it at the top here. Okay. So we're going to call that the playground. Playground as well. It doesn't need a description. It's probably not super useful. And we're going to be ignoring it in snapshots test. So we have a specific piece of code. We have a specific piece of code that is run during the CI, and that makes sure that it pretty much takes a screenshot of everything that's available as part of this project. So we make sure that we don't have no regressions that we would not see otherwise. Okay, so that's the first. We're going to be making a very small version of this. So we're going to be adding everything to the WASM. WASM target only, because we don't want to execute anything that comes from the other targets. So iOS, Android, and the others is not going to be useful. And we're going to be adding just a simple text editor, because sometimes it's quite useful. So our text editor is going to be, I think it was the code box here somewhere in there. But the code box was the Monaco code editor. Okay, there you go. So that's the one. And we're gonna take the one that's coming from C#. I think we had that somewhere. It's that XML. There you go. So we have our grid. I'm not sure why I don't have IntelliSense here. Probably because I removed the probably inside of we're inside of Uno. So inside of Uno, the IntelliSense has a bit more trouble, picking up things that we're doing. This is not something that happens when you're in an actual app, because we've taken care of making sure that we've taken care of IntelliSense and it's behaving properly. So we're going to make 2 columns of the same width, and we're going to pull in the code editor that we're going to put on one side, and we're going to put just a simple content control on the other side. And we're going to call it render surface. We need a Monaco namespace, which is defined at the top. We're going to also have to include a reference to the Monaco editor here, and that is coming from the WebAssembly playground. We had a reference to it somewhere. So we had a reference to pull request, but that has been fixed since then. So in a WebAssembly head, we're going to add our package reference. I don't recall which version is the latest, so let's go pick it up in NuGet Package Explorer. So this is in pre-release, we get 20 dev 50. Okay, so Let's use 20.50. And let's just try to see what we get so far. So once we have that, what we'll do is just pick up the changes that are coming from the code editor and just render the content directly on the side without asking too many questions. Okay, so it says that the SDK 7.0.302 is not available. This is caused by the fact that Uno has its own version specified in global JSON. You can change this by going into that file and either changing the version to one that you know of, or just plain remove those lines for the SDK and tools. Now that we've done this, we can go back and try again. Okay, there. So probably we're running the preview version of 8.0.200. We're actually waiting for that one eagerly, because there are two fixes that are included in that version. Oh, even Roslyn has changed. That's interesting. Okay, so that's going to be interesting. So one thing that we can do in that specific case is that I've removed the global JSON completely. Now it's picking up the preview version of .NET. It's probably not what we want. So I'm going to be just reverting this and removing the versions, but not allowing the pre-release, because I don't want to upgrade Roslyn as well. It's not the point of this particular one. Though I'm quite interested in determining if something was added to that version. There was one specific feature that dates back from a while. And let me find out which one that was. It's a PR that was done by the .NET Runtime team, the Roslyn team. And it's called Edit and Continue Defer Lambda Root Edit Reporting to the Runtime. And this is particularly interesting because that particular change is going to change quite a bit of things here, because when you're doing some edit and continue, if you're modifying a Lambda for which the captures are different from what you wrote originally when the Lambda was created, in previous versions or even current versions, so 4.8, it would just stop doing anything. So it would consider that a root edit. So it would stop the compilation and just not go forward. And I'm actually quite curious. I wonder if it's something that let's take a detour. I want to know if it's there, because if this is changed, that means that the hot reload will be will be able to do a lot more than it used to, because most of the root edits that we got when we were making modifications to anything that we were doing were related to the fact that lambdas were modified because you were doing captures of this or any kind of this keyword capture. You were doing things like this, and it would kind of break the flow. So you would have to stop and restart. And maybe this time this is actually fixed. So what we could do, I wonder if we should be doing. Let's do it in a. Well, let's do it in an Uno app. Create an Uno app, and then we're going to be just test in WinUI, for instance, directly. So I'm going to do a blank app, and and this has been something. So there are a few catches around that particular behavior, and we're going to try to see if it's been there. If we take a look at the commit that was done at the time, let's see in which branch that is included. Okay, so it's included in something that's called VS Code C# 2.15.30, but it's in main, so it doesn't feel like it's included in what is called 2.9. But maybe they're not tagging anything and it doesn't show. So So if we take a look at the branches, yeah, they're not making releases. There's versions here. So maybe, well, it looks like they stopped doing versions altogether. They were doing versions of Visual Studio. Let's see if there's anything with regard to Visual Studio 2022, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 preview. Okay, so 17.9 is not there. So maybe we will be lucky and we'll be able to see if it's included. Okay, so let's try it anyways. Okay, so we have our app here. I'm just going to be starting the app using Windows directly. We're gonna try to see if we're gonna actually do something about it. So trying to get a Lambda to break. Okay, so it's building. Still got our preview of .NET, but that's fine. Okay, starting my app. Okay, there we go. Okay, so if I do something like, if I create an action, I do, let's say debug. I don't even know if debug is good enough there. Yeah, debug is probably good enough. So right line. I'm gonna do a right. Oh, I'm gonna just do a right line and see what's getting written there. Okay, so if I do this and then, so I'm not sure if Visual Studio is going to be editing the right thing properly, but let's try it anyways. I think we so in Uno, edit code. What does it say? Okay, so it says initialize components not available there. I wonder if there's something else that's not working. So it's not, could be something with the preview version. I'm not going to bother with that. We're just going to be changing the target so that we just do Windows there. So let's go for Windows only. Okay, so if I try this again, will it work better? I would guess so. So if I have LO2, okay, we got there. So let's see, do we have our message showing up? Okay, so we have a hello2 that's running. Okay, that's good. So when I change this, you can see that the main page is recreated every time I'm changing something. So that means that we can actually test out and see what happens. Okay. So in here, the Lambda is here. If I put a static in front, you can see that there's nothing that is capturing. So that's good. Now, if I do something like, I don't know, if I do this, if I do get type, this is going to be calling a member method. And a static method cannot call a reference to this. So if I remove the static, this Lambda is going to become capturing, which is going to mean that there's going to be a display class generated behind, and that it will capture this variable that's contextual to the main constructor. So if I save this, it works. Now, the second question is, if I go back and I remove this, so remove the capture, if I put the static back again, does it work? It does. Okay. So that would be the first thing that is of interest, because I've captured this and I've removed the capture and it's still working. So now, if we want to validate that it actually does, if we want to validate that it actually is working the way we think it does, what we can do is we're gonna store basically all the lambdas that we're generating. So let's do list of action, and we call it actions. Let's add our lambda in there. So I'm adding lambdas, so we can see we got hello 4. And if I remove this and I do capture again, we get hello main page, which is good. Now, if I change it again and I put a breakpoint to A, let's see what we get. You know, how many lambdas we do get. So we have only one lambda, which is curious and which is okay because I forgot to put a static in front. That explains quite a bit. Now I'm not too sure. Okay, this is a root edit. Okay, so that's the kind of things that that breaks. You know, if you want to put static, not static things like that, it may not work. So what I'll do is I'm commenting that line, and I'm gonna be restarting my app so that we can start with logging the actions that are coming up in front and that are generated every time there's a hot reload that happens. Okay, so that's the first start. That's good. Now I'm going to be modifying my lambda so that it doesn't capture. Actually, let's do this. I want to, I'm going to be redoing that multiple times. Okay, so that's a static. That's a static. That's going to run. If I press save, I got one action. Good. Now, if I comment out the second one and I capture the capturing one, so put the action here, action A, inside of my list of actions. Save. How many do I have? I have 2. Okay, so I have 2 lambdas here. Now, what the Roslyn team said is that a discarded lambda should not be able to run once more. So what we can do is try to execute all the actions that are part of actions and see if it works or if it fails. So let's do this. Reach. So let's change that hello to something else. And we're going to call A2 and see what we do log. Okay, so what I wanted to validate, so we had original static one, now we do have a non-static one, and I'm going to go back to a static one. So we're going to call it static 2. So if I'm guessing what should be happening, we had static, then hello 7, then static 2. So we should be seeing all those 3. But, well, we should be. We guess we should be seeing all those 3. But because we discarded the first version, the second version, we should be getting an exception. So we're going to be validating if that's the case. Would you look at that? Attempted to invoke a deleted lambda or local function implementation. This will happen when a lambda or local function is deleted when the application is running. Okay. So that means that it is now possible to change a lambda inside of a running method. And what they're doing is that they're creating new lambdas and they're modifying the previous ones, which would have become invalidated. And that's particularly interesting because one of the things that you could do is just, let's say, modify an event handler on something that you're calling. So for instance, if you go to a button, for instance, and you attach something to it, and then you attach a lambda to the button, on the click event, for instance, and you change that lambda so that it captures what it was not capturing, or the reverse. What that means is that it would normally fail, but now it will not fail. But when you click the button, it will likely fail still because you're going to be invoking a method that was removed. So that would be quite interesting. So I wonder if there's a way to prevent that. Maybe there isn't a way. If you're invoking an action, there's no way to do it. Or maybe there's a way to to catch those missing methods exceptions. But that means that it's going to simplify source generation a lot. Because one of the things that we had was because of the fact that there were changes, the changes in lambdas were not accepted by the runtime, by the hot reload runtime. We were forced to do inside of Uno a lot of hoop jumping to make it work. But with that change, it means that we're going to be able to simplify our generation significantly. The only thing that we're going to be missing is only the fact that we won't be able to know if a lambda has been modified or not. Maybe there's a way to know about it. Maybe there's an attribute that's set on it. Is there an attribute set on it? Maybe. Declaring type, assemblies, generic method, high by signature. No, there's nothing here. Let's poke at that. Let's see. Well, it crashes the app as a result. That's not fun. This is very interesting. This is a very low level feature, but this is going to help quite a bit for the experience for the development using hot reload, because modifying lambdas is something that we do very often. And okay, so we have we have two actions. We get that specific action. So let's see what's inside. If I do, what do I get here? Target method. I have a method here. What can I get from the method? Is there get custom attributes? Maybe they added something. Who knows? No. There's nothing on it. Okay, so maybe we can't know if a method has been discarded, which is fine. But you know, at least it can be something that we can catch on at runtime if need be. Wow, very interesting. Okay, so we have a very cool new feature that was added to 70200. That's going to help a lot for Uno. Okay, so that's our small test for the playground. Okay, so we have also a bit of issues here, saying that it's still using 80200, but it's probably because we need to close and restart, reopen the solution. So let's do this. Okay. Let's see if our build goes faster, if it goes further along this time. So two things with regards to that particular feature with the edit and continue changes is that we can't know where a feature where a feature has been integrated, because the commits are not gonna tell us. And second, it's going to be included in 17.9. And that's a very good news. So I don't know when that's going to be released, but it's going to be very interesting. Now see that there's deleted lambdas. Oh, keep adding favorites here. Okay, emit constants. Doesn't feel like there's something specific here. There's just a missing constructor or things like that that tell us that something's wrong, but it doesn't flag functions in any meaningful way, for what I can tell. Anyways, very interesting. Very interesting otherwise. So what do we have? We still have the WebAssembly app that's still trying to use the latest version of the source generators from Blazor. Not sure why, because we allow pre-release to false. So if that still doesn't work, we're going to be upgrading everything to Roslyn 4.9. So that's what happens when you're trying previews, and it happens very often. So what we need to do to work around this is to change the active version of the source generators. And if we search for 4.8, we can see that the Microsoft Net Toolset compiler is set to 4.8. So we're going to go find which version we should be using. So we're searching for Microsoft Net compilers. And we need that version is very old. That's curious. It's probably not the one that we should be using. Oh, there you go. 4903 final. That's the one that we need to use. Okay. Change that version. And we're going to try again to see if we get something better. So one of the reasons that happens is that Uno is building with a very specific version of the Microsoft compilers. And we're doing this because we generally have to go, we want to use a compiler version that's ahead of the .NET version that we're trying. And that generally happens. That will happen again with .NET 9. Particularly, let's say we're in the middle of the year, let's say March or May, and then the Roslyn team is building with new features that are coming from .NET from their repository, but the .NET runtime that's underneath is not using it yet. So we need to move forward for bug fixes, and that's how you do it. We change the version to a later version that's ahead of what the .NET runtime is the .NET SDK is providing. So we can see that we're effectively using the latest SDK that's been released. Oh, there are new formatting rules for what I can see. This was not happening before. Oh no, it was there, so it's probably something that we broke. That's not happening. Okay, so we got the sample app. It's getting there. We have a few formatting issues. That's interesting. They should have been caught already. Probably not executing everything at the right time. Okay, so it says unable to resolve Uno core extensions logging. Okay, so that's probably an implicit dependency that we have in the Monaco editor. So we're going to be adding a reference to that particular package manually. I would think that we have a reference to that somewhere else, but just to be sure, we're going to pick up the last version. It's 4.0.1. Let's see if we go faster. We go farther. We should. So one thing that's interesting still is that because of the tag that was set on the commit that's on that PR, if you search for that particular commit here, it says that there's a tag that was set on it that says VS Code C#. So that means that there's going to be actual hot reload updates that are going to come to Visual Studio to VS Code and C#. So that's pretty nice. If you haven't started using or tried using VS Code for in C# Dev Kit, please do. It's pretty nice, quite effective. It works pretty well. I've been when I'm developing on Linux, that's what I use. It's working pretty nicely. Where recently I had to debug a feature that was related to UnoCheck that was installing features for Android. That's how I was able to test it properly on Linux. So it's very nice to see that we can develop properly on that target. It's pretty much the same thing. If your writer is working pretty well on that target as well. So if you want to develop for Linux, that's what you want to use. Okay. So that works, and we should be able to get our playground. Where is it? Playground. Why don't I see playground here? Did I miss something? Maybe it's not included. Maybe there's a bug somewhere. Yeah, it doesn't work. So I see McNets is asking VS Code with or without DevKit. Nope. I'd say with DevKit. DevKit is pretty much the same thing as was Visual Studio's providing. You get IntelliSense, you get IntelliCode, you get all the refactoring tools that are up to the latest. It's working pretty well. So yeah, it's probably best to take a look at with DevKit. Okay, so we can see here that for some reason the playground was not included, and that's a funny business of Visual Studio not liking the inclusion of files this way. Probably because I closed Visual Studio without saving. Could be. So it's lagging again, adding files. I don't know if it's related to shared projects or something. So we're trying to move away from shared projects because they're not supported that well. Trying to move to actual cross-targeted projects. But, inside of the Uno solution, that's what we have currently. Okay, there we go. So hot reload's not working in that context. That's expected. We're changing way too much. What's the error? We probably broke something there. An error was found in multiple controls. So user control does not support multiple children, which is definitely possible. I probably wrote something incorrect. Yeah, there you go. So I created a grid and put everything below the root. That's definitely not working. And this time we should be getting further. Yeah, it did. Okay, so we're good. So let's see if our playground is here. It should this time. Yes, our playground is here. So we should be having a XAML editor on the side. Good. And we have an empty piece here. And if we do, okay, so in here it doesn't seem to be showing any XAML, but it doesn't matter that much. We're gonna be handling it our own way. Okay, so to make it easy to not have to deal with updating at the right time, we're gonna add a small button somewhere that will do. So we're gonna be making row definitions. And it's gonna be height. There's one that's auto. And we get a grid in the middle. So that grid is definitely split with columns. And at the top, we're going to just put a stack panel Just going to be this and a bit of spacing and just one button. Let's call it apply, something like that for now, with just a click here. On apply. And in our C# code behind file, we're going to be using just the simple unapply. And what we're going to do is just take everything that's inside of the XAML text code editor and render it on the other side. So for that, we can take what is in the playground. There's no need to reinvent the wheel here. And in the playground, we had a piece that is called get XAML input. And that particular XAML input is going to be generating a few things here, which is going to generate a simple grid at the top and just generate content. So there's a few additional things here with behaviors and a few pieces like this. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to include all of it, but we'll see. But at least it will be there. So that's the first one, and the get XAML input. What we'll do is say that our render surface content equals our XAML reader. Which is part of markup. We're going to be using our load method using the get XAML input. And we're probably going to have to do a few things like showing up the results, but let's do it just right after. Our code box is called XAML text. And I think that's the only thing that we need. Render surface, so we're good. Let's check what happens now. So we're gonna have to handle errors. You show the errors at the right place. Hey XAML Llama, thanks for joining. So XAML Llama is saying XAML Studio does similar steps for namespaces. The settings has a list for which can be edited for sure. Yes, we're not editing this at this time, but definitely is going to be something that's useful. I'm not trying to make a full list of things here, because I'm trying to just get simple test edition inside of the playground, but inside of the sample app, and that's pretty useful. Just so you know, Mr. Llama, if you haven't seen, the reason I'm doing this is because inside of our PRs now we have a automatically published version of the test app for the PR. And the idea is to be able to test individual pieces of XAML and try to find additional scenarios that may not work with the code that was compiled for that PR, but running in an actual app. So that's the that particular PR you can see here with the URL that it is running here. So we're gonna get that test in. So having a playground integrated into the sample app will allow to test particular scenarios as a result of the modifications that are done by APR specifically. So if I take again my playground, I have my button here, so we're good. And if I do a simple text block, and I do apply, do I get something? I don't. So maybe there's an error somewhere that shows up. It says unable to find type text block, probably because it's missing something else. Most likely because the text here is not correct. Let me check what we do have. What was integrated is if the text is null. Oh, if the XAML text is null, then we take the XAML text, which is interesting. It's probably not what I wanted here. Okay, so we're just gonna be removing this. Doesn't matter. It doesn't feel right. And we needed the XAML text, so let's try it again. So one thing that we may try in the future is to make sure that we can enable XAML hot reload properly inside of the Uno solution. It's not something that completely works because the solution is so large, but maybe with the updates that the .NET team and the Roslyn team have been doing, it will start working. So that would be fun. Okay, so let's see what we have now. So if I go to my playground again and might add probably should have added that directly. There's there it is. There's our hello. It's not at the right place, but that's fine. It's probably because I just missed a grid row. So, and let's say 42. There we go. Okay, that works. So one thing that's not working properly is the fact that we have our text that's supposed to be color syntax highlighted. It's not. There's probably a small thing that we can fix there. And so there's that. So we can change the visual so that we push the content to the side. So that would be grid column 1. And so we're good with that. There's probably other things that we can change. So let's go take a look at our XAML text references in the playground, see what we're doing with it. So we have a code editor XAML language that is doing something explicitly for some reason. So we're changing the code language again. There's uniform line landings. There's a bit of text management, text changing here. Not super useful. The requested theme changes. So we're changing the theming. There's error management that we're not going to add for now. Just going to be showing the error as part of a text block or a text box of some kind, or maybe directly inside of the error window. Okay, so we could probably do just that part. And what that one does is just set the code language again. And loading, not sure what it does. It does nothing. Okay, so we can skip that one. And I said we have also error management, which is going to be very brutal. We're going to just drop the error directly into the render surface content and see what it shows. So the next step would be to add C# support as well, but I'm not sure if it's going to be the right place to do it. Particularly because we want to do it, inside of our Uno playground. So we'll try to change something about this later on. Okay. And so just so you know, I don't know if you remember having seen this, that particular icon here. What that means is that Visual Studio is rebuilding the app. So it's kind of waiting for the web app to be reloaded. And once it's done, it's just going to be Oh, it actually shows it here. So when the app rebuilds, then it actually will reload the page and show you the right content if the build actually worked. So it didn't work. What did I break? Okay, so the loading is not existing, of course. And this time it should be better. So for the last portion of the test here, we're going to take what was in the original PR and try to figure out if a newer, the updated version of the code actually fixes the issue. So we have probably an error, but it's not showing up. Not sure why. Text block. Okay, hello's working, which is good. Okay, so we're gonna stop here for the modification. I'm not sure exactly why the errors are not showing up. If I'm doing something like this, it should be. Oh, there you go. It's there. Okay, so text block starts at tag something. It doesn't show, which is good. So it shows the error properly. Not sure why it's not showing it originally, but that's good enough. So if you take a look at the original modification that was done from that PR, there were changing there were changes in the system focus visual. So there were two changes. There was a change in the border of the focus visual, and there's a change in here for the so there's the XAML change and there's a focus change. So what I'm gonna do is take a patch out of it. If nope. So am I allowed to do it using? Yeah. Okay, so I have my patch. I'm going to be saving this as a file somewhere in my downloads, and I'm going to be applying that patch to the execution, to the source tree that I do have. So my source tree is here. And I'm going to be applying that patch. So git apply patch. My patch is in the downloads. And it should be working. No such file or directory. Oh, not in the right folder, of course. So why did it work? Oh, wrong place. Patch does not apply. Okay, so maybe the patch was incorrect because it was aiming at a previous version of the sources. So let's just edit it. We're gonna do the modifications, considering it's just adding lines. Doesn't matter that much. So we're gonna be just applying the change for the other part. I'm just gonna apply the changes for the two pieces that were needed, and for the rest, I'm gonna do it manually. So we need to remove the transform root here. Oh, doesn't seem to be here. Let's see. Why? Why is that? Did I pick the wrong line? Or maybe it was changed already? So the file was system focus visual.cs. That's interesting. Why don't I have a system focus visual? Is it because I'm on an older version? That could be. Which version is it? No, it's the version from today. So is it because the file was moved? It could be. Is it because the file was moved? So Uno UI, XAML controls. XAML controls, and we get focus visual, system focus visual. That was him. Okay, I'm not too sure why it was not picked up, but okay. So it were in set layout properties. It's probably because it was split. Feels that way. No, it was not split. Okay, so set layout properties. Okay, so we have it here. So the transform point that we had was removed. So those two lines were replaced by something else. Okay, so we can take all of this and do that instead. Okay. So we're not in Microsoft.ui, so that's probably one of the reasons it doesn't fail. And that is probably incorrect as well, considering the latest updates we're going to see. Seems to be good enough. Okay. And the test that was done originally in the PR was doing something around the focus visual using a button and changing the render transform of that button to make it, at an angle. It's transforming the button, and the focus visual is not following the render. So we're going to try to see if the focus visual rendering is actually following the render transform. So it doesn't mean that the focus visual is going to follow the transforms of the elements that is there, but we'll see. Okay, so we have it now. So now we are just going to be creating a something that looks like this. We have a button with content. We have the focus primary thickness that we need to change and the render transform origin. So we're going to try to replicate this as part of a piece of XAML here. So this is what we're needing. I'm going to be removing this afterwards, but so we need a button that has a content with set to transform test. We need a primary thickness of 10. We need a secondary, not a comma. We need another part of a thickness, and we need a render transform. So the render transform we can't set that way. We have to do it below. And we're going to close the button as well. And we need a render transform origin set to 1, 1. And our render transform is a rotate transform with an angle of -45. Okay, it does not match the end of the tag grid. That's probably right because I didn't finish the button probably. Thank you, Magnets. Okay, so we have our render transform test. It's handling it properly. Now the question is, if we go to the button, does the transform rotate the right way? It does. Would you look at that? Okay, so the fix is doing what it's supposed to do. So all of that just to get to that point, which is what we needed. So it doesn't mean that the focus is going to follow. We can't test it here. Probably going to have to add modifications. But what that means is that the change was the right one. It's working properly, because when we're navigating to the button, the focus visual is doing the right thing. So let's say if we were to move the button using an offset transform, a transit transform or scale transform, anything like that, then it would follow the right thing. So there you have it. That's the change that we had to do for today. This is probably going to end up very soon in a PR for the Uno solution, so that we can test the behaviors directly there, probably with sample choosing or something like that. So it's going to be fun. And that's it for today. So I hope you learned a few things, and that you're going to be able to do some contributions to Uno, maybe hopefully one day. So until next week, happy coding. Bye for now.